Morning, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad that you've joined us. And if you're tuning in online, we're glad that you're with us as well. We're going to start this morning by singing some songs together. And I want to read for us out of Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 18, the Message translation. We look at this sun and see the God who cannot be seen. We look at this sun and see God's original purpose in everything created. For everything, absolutely everything, above and below, visible and invisible, rank after rank after rank of angels, everything got started in him and finds its purpose in him. He was there before any of it came into existence and holds it all together right up to this very moment. When it comes to the church, he organizes and holds it together like a head does the body. We're going to sing a couple songs together as we get started this morning, so I want to invite you to stand as we worship the head of the church, our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Let's sing.
Oh, we look to the sun, set our eyes on our Savior, see the image of love, sing his praises forever. Oh, we look to the sun. Oh, we look to the sun. Yeah. Salvation tearing through the dead of night. See the kingdom burst into color at the speed of light. Freedom shaking up the atmosphere as the shadows fade into nothing as the day appears. Come on, sing it out. Beyond the skies above, reaching out for us, the everlasting one, Jesus our God. Oh, we look to the sun, set our eyes on our Savior, see the image of love, sing his praises forever. Oh, we look to the sun. Creation waking up to kingdom come. See the hope of heaven shining like the rising sun. Now forever lifted up from death to life. There's no fear in love and no darkness in his endless light. Yeah! Beyond the skies above, love reaching out for us, the everlasting one, Jesus our God. Oh, we look to the sun, set our eyes on our Savior, see the image of love, sing his praises forever. Oh, we look to the sun. Oh, we look to the sun. Yeah. Lift your voices. Beyond the skies above, love reaching out for us, the everlasting one, Jesus our God. Beyond the skies above, love reaching out for us, the everlasting one, Jesus our God. Oh, we look to the sun. Come on, put your hands together. Oh, we look to the sun. Oh, we look to
righteousness and not my own. I will cling to Christ my hope. His mercy reigns now and forever. I will boast in Christ alone. His righteousness and not my own. I will cling to Christ my hope. His mercy reigns now and forever. What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
As I rise, strength of God, go before and lift me up. As I wake, eyes of God, look upon me, my side. As I wait, heart of God, satisfied.
Father, that is the cry of our hearts, Lord, this morning. We know that we don't have to invite you into this place. We know that your presence is here and that you just long to meet with us. I pray, Lord, that you allow the posture of our hearts, Lord, to be one that's open this morning, Lord. One that's ready to hear words from you, Lord. I pray that you allow us to soak in the message this morning, Lord, and that it would better equip us to reach the next generation, Lord. That it would better equip us to shine your light in a way that makes sense, a way that gets through, so that we can continue to be your light as we leave this place. We love you, Heavenly Father. We give you this service. We're thankful that we get the opportunity to meet and to lift your name high. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen. Well, just as we just sang about, and as we've been encouraging you for the last several weeks, there's some visitors here this morning, and we want to be the most welcoming place they go all week. And the way that we do that is by extending ourselves, by greeting those around us. So would you turn and greet some people around you before you have a seat this morning?
Morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to Pathway. We want to do really quickly. I'm Ron Williams, one of the pastors on staff. We want to welcome those online. We want to welcome those up in the venue. I was just up in the venue a few moments ago. The venue has a lot of people in the venue, and we want to welcome our guests as well. So can we do me a favor? Let's just welcome all those folks this morning here to Pathway. Can you do that for me? Yeah, great. So I'm just so thankful for all that's going on around this church, and just the amount of community that's now beginning to take place, and just the excitement as it relates to what we're able to do right here, as well as within our city and certainly within the world. And that's all because of the giving that you have continued to do so faithfully here to PCC. And so I want to ask those who are going to serve us this time with the buckets, go ahead and come on down. And if you're a guest with us this morning, this is not your time to give, but for those of us who call Pathway home, this is our opportunity to give back a portion of what the Lord has given to us as well. If you are a guest with us today, we want to welcome you. And on your seat, there's actually a card that looks like this. And you are actually in what we call a section community. The entire venue is a section community, but you are in a section community right here. And if you would just do us a favor, if you're a guest today, just simply fill that card out. And you'll notice there's a picture on the front of the card, and that's actually a section leader that is assigned to your particular section. And you can either hand that to them on the way out today or stop by out in the lobby, Guest Central, and just kind of hand your card off. We'd love to get to know you a little bit, maybe send some information your way, and just to connect with you more deeply in community. 4 of our values around here are to connect, grow, serve, and go. We talked a little bit about that last week in our final installment of Just Jesus. And so that connecting piece is so important for us because we really want you to connect with God as well as with others, to grow in your relationship with Christ. And yet we know that one of the ways in which you grow more deeply is not simply coming here and sitting in rows, but when you actually sit in someone's home in a circle, more or less, and you begin to get to know others on a more intimate level and begin to kind of process your faith that way. And so around here, we do that through what we call small groups. And every fall, we launch a small group series that runs 7 weeks. Starting next week, we'll launch this new series called Divine Direction. And in that 7 weeks, we provide you with an opportunity to connect with others who are really right where you're at and wanting to grow in their relationship with Christ as well. On the inside of your outline that you received on the way in this morning, you'll notice there is a very large selection of small groups that are open groups around here that are families and hosts that have said, listen, we want to invite more into our group. We're willing to start a group. And so starting next week, we're going to ask you to begin to step into these groups. And you can actually get information on that today. And so as you leave this morning, you walk out to the foyer area, and you kind of turn left by the coffee area. There's a small group section back there in what we would call the cafe. And they would love to talk to you about small groups and begin to help you connect with those. Connect early, because as time goes on, as these weeks go on, those groups will begin to drop off because they become full as well. So really encourage you to do that as well, to connect with others in community. Hey, we are in the middle of a kind of a break. And that is, we did Just Jesus all summer long. We talked about the heart that Jesus wants us to have and how Jesus wants us to relate to others as well in a very loving way as he did. And next week we start this new series we're calling Divine Direction. And so we thought we'd take a break, and one of our strategic issues around here is that we really want to help people understand that when it comes to your faith is really lived out in your home. It's one thing to live it out here, but we want you to go home and see the home as the primary place of discipleship. And so every so often, we're going to take a break between a series and just talk about the home and talk about ways in which you can live out your faith at home. And this morning is really just going to be an awesome time for you. I have 3 teenagers. I have a 10-year-old. I'm going crazy as it relates to all those generations in my home because, frankly, at times I have a hard time understanding how to parent, how to relate, and how to connect with them. Some of you don't have kids in your home anymore, but yet you run into kids like that, and you're trying to feel the same way. But in other words, in many ways, we just want to know how we can come alongside of and just speak some hope into this generation. So this morning, we have Dr. Tim Elmore with us. Tim is a good friend. He comes out of Atlanta, Georgia, through an organization called Growing Leaders. And I'll tell you what, Tim is going to really help us really understand this generation in a way that I think is going to be very meaningful and very personal to all of us. And so this morning, I just want you to do me a favor and welcome Dr. Tim Elmore today.
Good morning. It is very good to see you again. I think I was here a number of years ago. You were just a wee little lad at that point. But it's great to be back. Our topic is going to be on the screen here shortly. There it is, helping the next gen win. Now, let me start by saying I don't consider myself some sort of expert or guru or sage, but at Growing Leaders, our nonprofit, we partner with schools around the world, and one of our jobs is to help the established generation, that would be you, connect with the emerging generation. Now, as I look out, I'm seeing there are some from the emerging generation here, so I think we need to start with a game. I'm going to give you a pop quiz on the next generation. Does that sound fun? Oh, I can tell. You're very passionate about this. All right, so on this screen right here in just a moment, I'm going to put 10 phrases that middle school, high school, college students would use very, very frequently. Your job is to decode or decipher these simple phrases. Now, if you need help, buddy up with somebody next to you. If there's a teenager, they will help you. All right, but you're going to have 60 seconds to decipher these phrases. Get on your marks, get set, go. Okay, your 60 seconds are up. You can put your number 2 pencils down, all right? Okay, here's what I want to do. We're going to do the honor system and grade our own papers, okay? We're going to see if collectively we have one good brain in here, okay? All right, so I'm going to go down one by one. If you know the right answer, just yell it out, okay? And if you don't know the right answer, please don't yell, all right? Okay, so number 1, Netflix and, all right, good. And students, you know that has taken on a new meaning now, okay? Number 2, I literally can't. Very good. Okay, number 3, turn down for. Good, you guys are good, all right. Ladies in the room, man crush. Excellent. Gentlemen in the room, woman crush. I didn't hear quite the passion on that one. Nor did I also heard sopranos and altos, I think, on that one too, not just tenors and baritones. All right, number 6, squad. Good, very good. You've heard this one, haven't you? Sorry, not. Okay, good. 8, fear of missing. Excellent. Number 9, the struggle is. Good. And then finally, number 10, bye. Excellent, good. You guys did well. Give yourself a hand. That was awesome. Okay. So just for my own benefit, how many of you got all 10 of those? Let me just see your hands. You got all 10? Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. Good. How many of you would raise your hand and say, I have no idea what we just did? Would anybody? Okay. Yeah, I think there's more of those than the first hand. Well, again, we're going to talk about the emerging generation. And no matter who you are, I'm going to make it relevant for you. So parents, this will definitely be relevant. But aunts, uncles, teachers, for sure, coaches, principals, deans, aunts and uncles that just have a niece or nephew. I'm going to talk about the future and how do we prepare this emerging population of kids that are full of potential, great talent, loaded with, I believe, the capacity to literally change the world in a positive way. But we may have to tweak the way we lead, parent, coach, and employ them for them to reach that potential. And that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? Now, that little exercise we just did is an illustration of what I'm talking about. One of the reasons, if we fill a gap between our generation and their generation, is because we are now raising a generation of firsts. Meaning today's population of kids are inaugurating so many brand new realities, it's no wonder we didn't know what to do. Nobody ever trained us what to do. Here's a good example. My own parents could not teach me how to raise a child with a portable device in their hand. They never raised a child with a portable device. You follow what I'm saying? So my wife and I, all our life, we're making it up as we go. Anybody feel like you're making it up as you go, as you parent your kids right now? I hope that was not wrong, you know? Hope they're not going to be in therapy at 30 years old, you know, that sort of thing, you know? So let me just illustrate what I'm saying. In a very rapid sort of way, I'm going to put up on the screen here some realities of today's kids. And what I want you to do is I want you just to look at these and realize, oh my gosh, we are going to have to perhaps change the methods. Not the mission of raising our kids, but the methodology may need to change. For instance, have you ever stopped to think that today's kids are part of the first generation that doesn't need adults to get information? That used to be the deal. The reason they needed us because we knew and they didn't. Well, now that's not true anymore. Thank you, Google and YouTube. They don't need you for information. But listen, they do need you for interpretation. Let me help you make sense of all that you know. I realize you watch 14 YouTube videos. Now let me give context to all the content. By the way, isn't that the problem of our day? We've got content with no context. And then we tweet about it, you know? It's true. Adults too, we do the same thing. So all I'm saying is parents, teachers, coaches, they don't need you to access the information, but to process the information. We're Sherpa guides walking up a mountain and we're saying, watch out for that snake. Look at that stone over there. What path do you think you ought to take? And we're just giving them a worldview to navigate these new realities. But it's a new game. Here's another one. Today's kids are part of the first generation that can broadcast their every thought or emotion in real time. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the end of the world, but can I tell you how different this makes the world? First of all, at Growing Leaders, we partner with a lot of NCAA Division I athletic programs. So this has them in a quandary, where that star athlete's tweeting what he thinks about his coach after the game, forgetting he's the PR for the university. So as my kids were growing up, they're both adults now, but as they were growing up, I kept insisting, you got to think long term. What's the long-term ramifications of my words? Big picture. Are there any other angles that I don't have? And high road. Can I take the high road with others, not the low road? Big picture, long-term, high road. Big picture, long-term, high road. Would you agree? I don't think culture's teaching that very well today. We've got to teach it. We've got to make sure they've got those tools in the toolbox when they do that big job interview for the career. Here's another one. Today's kids are part of the first generation that enjoys external stimuli at their fingertips 24/7. Now again, not the end of the world, but here's what I often thought as a dad of two kids, Bethany and Jonathan, a boy and a girl. I've often thought, if they've always got this portable device out there pinging at them all the time, stimulating them all the time, will they ever develop internal motivation where they don't need Katy Perry to get them going in the morning? You follow what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with Katy Perry, but I want the Spirit of God to move them on the inside, not I got to get something from the outside to get me going in the morning. You follow what I'm saying? That's how we say it in Georgia, by the way. Got to get something from the outside. I'm just saying we may have to parent a little different or teach or lead a little different so we're not addicted to something from the outside to move us forward. Can I get an amen from the choir? Good, okay. Number 4, today's kids are part of the first generation that's in social contact at all times, yet often isolation. Isn't this the paradox of our day? Funny illustration. So I was talking to faculty at a state university in Ohio, right next door, and at the break time, one of the faculty came up to me and said, oh yes, this is a very social generation. Not really good with people, but they're very social. You know, wait, how could that be? Now, by the way, it's affected all of us, haven't it? Our interpersonal skills can be very low, but we're connected to 400 people on a screen. And by the way, we're on that screen so often. One teenage girl recently told me, Dr. Elmore, it feels like someone's tapping me on the shoulder all day long. Ping, 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 you know, something coming from my phone. That would get annoying, don't you think? But let me tell you how it's affected us. You've heard of ghosting, haven't you? Oh yeah, we ghost now. So here's a guy and a girl, maybe they're dating, they're talking back and forth, texting, but then one of them, you know, doesn't want to text anymore. Conversation goes sideways. Instead of having a hard conversation and breaking up, they just ghost, they go away. I talked to a high school student recently, a female, and I said, are you guys still dating? She goes, I don't think so. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, he ghosted me. I don't know if he just put the phone away or lost the phone, or if he actually just didn't want to date anymore. But instead of having hard conversations, we just go away. Phubbing. Have you heard of phubbing? P-H-U-B-B-I-N-G. It's phone snubbing. We do it all the time. Oh yeah. Here's this typical scenario. We're out in public, and when we used to be out in public close to people, we'd have conversations. Even if, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? You know? Picture you're on the elevator, 7 people in that elevator. You're less than a foot and a half apart. Are we talking? No, it's too hard to talk. We're on the phone, scrolling through the Instagram feed. Gotta see what Instagram says to me. Have we not got socially lazy? This is our excuse to not interact with others. Oh, and then there's digital dissing. Digital dissing. Oh yeah, this is a reality now. An article just was full of interviews with parents who have preschool-age children, who are now dissing Alexa. Oh yes, they are. You know what Alexa is, that smart device in your kitchen or whatever. And now they're, Alexa, you're so stupid. Do what I tell you to do. And I'm saying, and parents are going, my gosh, my kid's picking up horrible manners because they can talk however they want to Alexa or Siri. So they're having to build people skills in kids. You see, I'm not saying we need to go back to the old days, but I remember learning very rapidly what we needed to do when you interact with others. And now we've got this device that means I can be socially retarded. We can be. All of us, any age. How do we build skill sets that are needed for employment, for ministry that are going to be needed in the future? It's a new thought. Here's another one. Today's kids are part of the first generation that will learn more from a portable device than a class. By the way, that's a fact. The average adolescent in America today spends the equivalent of a full-time job on a screen every day. And it's not all school. So, wow, oh my gosh. I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying it's coming. And then lastly, today's kids are part of the first generation that will use a phone instead of a wristwatch, camera, wall counter, alarm clock, roadmap, or board game. And that list just goes on and on and on. So in light of these realities, how do we disciple, serve, equip, parent, coach, teach, employ this emerging generation that I'm convinced may be the greatest one America's ever seen? They certainly have the capacity, because we're connected worldwide, to change the world. But how do we get them ready? Where their emotional and spiritual growth is as high as their cognitive and technological growth. That's going to be the key. Are we ready? Some of you, maybe not here in this room, but some of you, a part of this church, have already said, yes, it does feel like, to me, a cross-cultural relationship. By the way, have you ever noticed when you go overseas somewhere, you work harder at that relationship, don't you? You know, in fact, you talk slower, like that's going to help. Hello, how are you? Like if you don't speak Spanish, oh, now I understand, you know? All I'm saying is we may have to work just as hard at someone who's, 15, 16, because we're 56. But it's going to require the work. Are we willing to put in that work? So there's a passage of scripture tucked away in the Old Testament that's become a favorite of mine. In the book of 1 Chronicles, which you may not spend every day in 1 Chronicles, but there's a chapter 20. And in this chapter, it's great because the writer is actually chronicling all the tribes and clans of Israel. And when he gets to the sons of Issachar, the tribe of Issachar, he says something very interesting. Actually, it's chapter 12, I'm sorry. But look at these words. And the sons of Issachar were men who, what are those next 3 words? Say them out loud. Who understood the times. In other words, whenever we get to a place where we don't seem to understand the times we're living in, the culture we're living in, we look to the sons of Issachar. They seem to be people who get it. They just know the times we're living in. And it didn't stop there. Look what he says next. With the knowledge of what the people of Israel should do. That's been my prayer for today. God, give us insight. Help us understand the times, and then show us how do we lead in these very different times than perhaps the ones we grew up in. So with that said, and with that foundation laid, let's talk about what I was asked to talk about. Who are these new digital natives? Who is this population that now is being commonly called Generation Z, following the millennials? By the way, have we not been talking about the millennials forever? By the way, millennials in the room, aren't you tired of us talking about you? Aren't you? Come on. Those lazy slackers, entitled to, that sort of thing all the time. So we're going to talk about a new population that we're just now beginning to measure. Social scientists are just now beginning to measure, called Gen Z. Let's start with a chart. I'm going to show you right now part of a chart that we put in Andrew and I did a book called Marching Off the Map. And in this book, we added this chart that helps you compare and contrast your generation, you, with today's emerging generation. You're going to find there's some differences because what shaped us growing up and molded us is different today than it was, let's say, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Let me illustrate. There are 5 generations that are influencing the world right now. Actually, 6 generations that are alive and well. But here are the youngest ones that are still influencing the world around us, okay? Very quickly, there's the builder generation. Those are the ones born between 1929 and 1945. That would be my parents' generation, okay? And then there's the baby boomer generation, 1946 to 64. Do we have any boomers in the room? Raise your hand. Yay, glad you guys are here. By the way, doesn't it feel good just to be able to raise our hand? We're still breathing. We're still breathing. Okay, just kidding. I'm a boomer too. I'm just happen to be vertical and breathing right now. Okay, all right. And then after the boomers come the baby busters, or Generation X, 1965 to 82. How many Xers? All right, yeah, lots of you guys. You all are now the heart and soul of the workforce, okay? And then there are the millennials, basically the kids born in the 80s and 90s. Millennials, raise your hand. Let me see you. Yep, good, excellent. And now this youngest population growing up today, really growing, the kids growing up in the 21st century, Generation Z. Some social scientists call them the Homelanders because their generation started at about the same time as the Department of Homeland Security. If you stop and think about it, the last 17, 18 years, 19 years, it's been a little harder, hasn't it? Since September 11th, 2001, there's been 26,000 other terrorist attacks around the world. Somewhere in the world, somebody's getting blown up right now. That's how the kids feel. And by the way, I'm hearing about it 5 seconds later on my device. Racial unrest today. Don't you feel like we're back in the 60s sometimes? 2 recessions have happened during their lifetime, if they were born in 2001, 2002. Very, very different times. So all I want you to notice is, in the times that we grow up in, when we're shaped and formed by shared tragedies, shared television, shared music, shared heroes, those experiences shape us and give us a narrative. We're not all alike, for sure. We're all individuals. But there's a narrative that each generation brings with them as they move from backpack to briefcase, as they move from school to work to career. Make sense? Okay, so let's look at these. I want to talk about the life paradigm that each generation brings with them as they move into adulthood, okay? So let's go way back in time. My mom and dad's generation, I believe the paradigm they brought with them into the workplace was, just be grateful you have a job. Somebody yell it out. Why would I assign that one to them? Yeah, exactly, the Great Depression. In November of 1929, the great stock market crash occurred. And the following years were an incredibly deep economic depression, far worse than we've seen in our lifetime. In fact, let me just illustrate. My mom and dad, this generation. My mom passed away. Dad's still with us. He turns 88 this year. He was born in 1930. The first 10 years of his life were the Great Depression. The next 5, World War II. So can I describe him to you? It's very grateful, right? Very grateful. Grateful for everything. Frugal. Should I buy the chewing gum? Dad, buy the gum. You can afford it. Go ahead. Take a risk, you know. Conservative. Save the wrapping paper at Christmas. We'll use it next year. Save the paper. Have y'all heard this before? Save the paper. I've heard this. Iron it. Iron the paper. We'll use it next year. Put that stuff over there. Yep. And of course, we have saved every rubber band and plastic bag known to man. It's up in the attic right now. You never know. You might need it, okay? We're going to have to clean, once Dad goes to heaven, we're going to have to clean out that attic, and it's just crazy. But my point is, first green generation coming through America is what we had there, all right? Just be grateful you have a job. By the way, wasn't that a great generation? Absolutely. Okay, now, following the builders come my generation, the baby boomers, okay? 46 to 64. And we were called boomers because 9 months after World War II was over, the maternity wards filled up. This is a biology lesson, okay? So 76 million babies born in 18 years. That had never happened in America. It was a boom of babies. And so I gave the boomers a life paradigm, my generation, you owe me, or I like better the phrase, I deserve better. Because boomers felt entitled to a better life than mom and dad had had. Life was expanding now. Shopping malls were springing up. McDonald's was franchising. Everything seemed to be growing. Life after the war was better. And there were lots of us. So everybody paid attention to us. They wanted our eventual dollar. 76 million buyers eventually. It was huge. So we felt we deserved better. Following the boomers come the baby busters. And I gave you guys in the audience today the phrase, keep it real. Because you grew up in a very, very different time. Now, Gen X, can I give you a little hint about your generation? Instead of being called baby boomers, you were first called baby busters before Gen X ever stuck to you as a title. Do you know why it was? Because the first year of your population, your generation's existence, was the public introduction of the birth control pill. Instead of boom of babies, it was a bust. In fact, if you add on top of that Roe versus Wade in 1973, you have a shrinking population, not a booming population. So it was like 46 million, not 76 million. That was a big difference. So you grew up in the shadows of those baby boomers who were stealing all the jobs and all the promotions and going through midlife crises together, getting the Ferrari, all that stuff, okay? So I gave you all, since it was a little darker and you were in the shadows of the boomers, keep it real. You guys were a generation that went into adulthood a little skeptical. Would you agree? Maybe not you, but your generation. Don't tell me life is all wonderful. It's not all wonderful. In fact, look at the years, 65 to 82. Not only was the Vietnam War going on, we were watching it on TV. And even though Lyndon B. Johnson said it's all fine, we started watching footage going, I don't think it's fine. And then you had the Watergate scandal. Now you had a Democrat and a Republican lying from the White House. There was a very real jaded wall that went up that said, I'm not going to blindly trust anybody. That was the feel of those times. It was hard. And then the millennials came along, Gen Y following Gen X, 83 to 2000, more or less. And millennials in the room, I gave you the life paradigm. Life is a cafeteria, okay? Now let me explain why. Stay with me, because I think you'll say, whoop, that's kind of accurate. You all grew up in a time where customization began to happen. In fact, let me explain. In the same way that you go to a cafeteria and you grab your tray and your plate and you go down the line and you kind of make up your own meal, tailored for your taste buds, these young adults are making nearly every major decision of their life as if it were one large buffet. Let me illustrate. My two kids are both millennials. Bethany's 30, Jonathan's 26. Years ago, they stopped buying CDs to get their music. Why would they get a CD? There might be 4 songs they don't like on that CD. They get one song at a time from their own playlist on iTunes or Spotify. Millennials in the room, I'm all right about this, okay? It's a cafeteria. And by the way, it has little to do with lower or higher socioeconomic status. It's just a buffet. They'll make educational decisions this way. They'll graduate from high school and go to 3 or 4 different colleges for 1 degree. One of them's overseas. And did you know this? In many higher education institutions today, you no longer have to choose a major. You can make up a major. Just make it up. It's amazing. We work with a lot of colleges. In fact, Shelby was an intern at Growing Leaders a few years ago. Shelby made up her major. Poetry and clowning. Love it. Wow. Shelby, what is that? It's my passion. It's my passion, Now, parents, did we not raise them this way? Find your passion, go do it. Now, I'm having fun. And millennials, I don't mean to be poking fun, but you all were raised in this, and it's our fault if anything went wrong. Not your fault, but we raised you in a customized shoe. By the way, did you know this? You can customize your Nike shoe now for your foot, for you. This is life. It's a buffet. By the way, this buffet mindset has struck us spiritually too. We meet many young professionals, and it's a cafeteria. A little bit of Jesus, a little bit of Buddha, a little bit of Oprah, shake it together. I've made it my own faith. There's no one true source, but this God really likes me. Now, all I'm saying is this: the times are different, and we have to be very, very. The sons of Issachar were men who understood the times with the knowledge of what the people should do. Now, having said that, I want to focus in on Gen Z for a few minutes. Gen Z, again, are the youngest students that we're focusing on today, that social scientists are focusing on. And as we get around and do focus groups and just dig up data, I would say the one phrase that I think best summarizes the mindset. There's all different personalities and temperaments and goals and strategies and apps, but the one mindset that seems to be prevailing in all 50 states as we interview Gen Z is this: I'm coping and hoping. Meaning life is hard again. Oh yeah, I know you think it's fun for me with Snapchat and everything else, but life is hard. First of all, a teenager today would say, I'm barraged with 10,000 messages a day. That's the average intake of a teenager, 10,000 messages a day. I'm not sure if God wired our brain to take in 10,000 messages a day, half of which I don't even need. Would you agree with that? Teenager, wouldn't you agree? I don't know if I need all this stuff coming at me. Some of it makes me depressed because I'm seeing somebody that had the best vacation ever. And we're thinking, do you ever do your laundry? Does that ever? Yeah, no, I don't post that. Am I right about this? So listen to me. This generation, the American Psychological Association recently posted The average adolescent today experiences the same level of anxiety as a psychiatric patient did in the 1950s. Crazy. And I know you're going, what do they have to be stressed out about? There is great levels of anxiety and depression. In fact, it's almost epidemic. I don't think it's been called epidemic yet, but it's everywhere we go. And sometimes they just get paralyzed. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. And then there's the pressure from adults to make the grade, make the team, and they're feeling like, I've got to be the star. And then of course, mom, you feel like you got to be the star mom. There's so much pressure to do it all perfectly. And I think it's gotten to so many. So real quick, let me share with you some of the shifts that Generation Z brings. I started teaching students in 1979. I just dated myself there. So seen 4 generations come through the school system. Generation Z, following the millennials, has brought these shifts. Number 1, confidence is morphing into caution. That's not always bad, but instead of the confidence that the millennials had, sometimes overconfidence, right? I'm going to change the world by noon on Friday, and then I'll get an apartment, or whatever, I don't know. But now millennials, I'm having fun, but wouldn't you agree your generation was probably a little overconfident perhaps? Well, now they've seen recession and just bad stuff happen, and they're going, wow, I'm going to be cautious. Idealism is morphing into pragmatism. Again, pragmatism is not all bad, but there's the idealism that usually accompanies youth is not always there. We may have to be dispensers of hope to this next generation. Here's another one. Attacking a career is morphing into hacking one. What I mean by that is, where the millennial might have bought into what mom and dad said, just go to college and you get a great job. Well, Gen Z watched their older brother or sister go to college. The great job didn't open up right away. What did happen was they got a $28,000 debt. Now they've moved back home. They're barista at Starbucks, which they could have done prior to college. It's happened so many times. Gen Z goes, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not just going to follow the mantra of the day. So they're hacking their post-secondary education. After high school, I'm going to take a couple of MOOCs, a massive online open course, get an internship here, a mentor there, maybe take a class there, and my resume will be a litany of hodgepodge experiences that I'll sell to an employer to hire me for a gig. It's called the gig economy today. I'll do a gig here for a year and a half, a gig over there for a year, a gig here for a couple of years. I may have 5 jobs in my 20s. Do you see this here in Indiana? Not everywhere, but boy, it's changing. Loyalty is no longer, we're opportunists, not loyalists. Here's another one. Consuming media is morphing into creating media. So while the millennials might sit and watch YouTube videos for 3 hours in the afternoon, Gen Z goes, I want to make those videos. Teachers, you ought to take advantage of this. Viral posts are morphing into vanished ones. So we all know what it means to go viral, right? Where 10,000 people like or share or view your post or your video. Well, they love that, but they've also seen millennials do something like this. They were in college and that millennial posted pictures of the party on Friday night at college where they got crunk, crazy drunk. They posted the pictures, but they forgot they had a job interview on Monday. And the boss looked at those pictures and said, don't think I want to hire you. So Gen Z's smarter now. They go, well, I'm going to post because you do have to post, but it's going to be Snapchat. It'll be gone in 11 seconds. Nobody will know. But I did post the party pictures. You follow what I'm saying? It's a savvy group of kids that are figuring it out, but it's going to be different. Text messages are morphing into iconic messages. So we used to text words all the time, lots of words. Some of us still do. But you know what I'm seeing in the emerging generation? They're texting icons and images and emojis and bitmojis and stickers. Are we not it's pictures being sent back and forth. I'm just saying, I'm not saying, okay? And then finally, I mentioned this earlier, anticipation is morphing into anxiety. More mental health issues in this generation, and I don't fault the kids, I really don't. I think they're fantastic, but somehow the conglomeration of what they're digesting in their system, what they're experiencing on the phone screen, sometimes our pressures from mom and dad to make everything perfect and never fail. By the way, I hear about FOMO. You know what else we hear about from teenagers? FOMO, F-O-M-U, fear of messing up. They don't want to mess up ever. They don't want to fail. And then FOLO, fear of living offline. So if mom and dad take the phone away, I'm going to give my password to my friends so my Snapchat streak keeps going because there's an angst that happens when I'm off the phone. So I want to illustrate what I'm talking about. I want to show you, not just tell you, okay? If you'll look at the screen or those big screens up there, I want to play 1 minute from a music video that was very typical of the mindset of the millennial generation. In fact, millennials in the room, you'll recognize this song immediately. Do you remember back in 2004, the Black Eyed Peas? Remember the Black Eyed Peas? Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna play a minute from that. Watch the video, watch what they're doing, and watch the words as we post them on the screen. I just want you to get the tenor and tone of a millennial song that I think was a narrative of their generation. Here it is. Okay, so the narrative, let's get it started. By the way, you'll be pleased to know I've memorized all those lyrics. Thank you. Just kidding. Dancing in the streets, we're pretty confident, right? Would you say that's a confident video? Okay. That was 2004. 2015, just 3 years ago, a Grammy Award-winning band that you probably have heard, 21 Pilots. They have their finger on Gen Z, on the pulse of Gen Z. They did this song, watch what they're doing, watch the words. The song is called Stressed Out. Okay, so I just want you to look at the lyrics of both songs briefly, just at a glance. See what it moves from. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here to, well, you can read it. So, with the different narrative going on today in culture itself, sometimes we feel it at 45 or 55 or whatever old we are. We have to be aware we may have to change, not our mission, but our methods in equipping this next generation to be ready for adulthood, for being disciples of Jesus, for doing the things they were called and gifted to do. Now, I want to do one more slide before I end with 4 ideas you can employ as you teach and reach the next generation. This next slide may be the most important one I do with you because I think it's going to inform your game plan. If you care at all about the next generation, this may be informing you of a game plan. I call it our scene today. And what I'm about to do is I'm going to give you 2 columns. On the left-hand side, I'm going to give you 5 words that spell the word scene, S-C-E-N-E. All 5 of these words, you're going to go, yep, that's our culture today. That's our 21st century society. But then off to the right, I'm going to give you what I consider to be the unintended consequences of that scenario. What we didn't necessarily see coming as a reality, as a result. All right, so fasten your seatbelts, here we go. The letter S in scene reminds us our world today is full of speed. Would you agree with that? We want everything faster and faster and faster. We want high-speed internet access and nothing less. We don't call it gram, we call it Instagram. Even the name has to feel fast, you know? I often joke when I'm with students, we are a part of a generation that's pacing in front of the microwave oven. Is it not ridiculous? This muffin's taking 60 seconds. What's wrong with this thing, you know? Do you all feel this too? I think I'm less patient today than I was a decade ago. But watch, if I'm a kid growing up in this world today, I can far too easily assume that slow is bad. I can't even navigate slow. I don't like slow. But wouldn't you all agree? Some things happen slow, don't they? Some good things happen slow, like a good marriage or a good friendship or a good job and career. All I'm saying is we may have to be countercultural to the mantra and message of our culture. The letter C in scene reminds us our world today is full of convenience. And by the way, don't we all love the modern day conveniences? I wouldn't want to be without them. I love them. Everything's a quick click. It's awesome. Food's delivered to my house. But if I grew up in a world of convenience, it is so easy to conclude that hard is bad. Folks, listen to me. Did you know the #1 phrase that K-12 educators in America say they hear from students? This is too hard. Yeah, they tell their teacher that. This is too hard. And of course the teacher wants to go, we've been doing this math equation for decades, Johnny. You can do it too, but everything's been a quick click. This is hard. We work with a lot of Division I NCAA athletic programs. In fact, several here in Indiana, Purdue, IU. I'm telling you, they're saying the student athletes are going, this is too hard. Well, if you want to win a championship, it's going to be hard. And not everybody gets a trophy. Come on, am I right about this? So I'm just saying, I don't blame the kids. We raised them. I'm just saying, how do we reverse the system so the kids we're mentoring are head and shoulders beyond the others because they so get how life works. Here's another one, the letter E. Our world today is full of entertainment. And by the way, now it's in our hands, isn't it? Let's get honest. If you got 5 minutes to wait in line, aren't you pulling that smartphone, checking out email, ESPN, whatever? We want a little stimuli. We don't want to be bored. Where are those earbuds? Where are those earbuds? But watch this. If I grew up in a world of entertainment and I'm just used to that, noise and clutter all the time, it's so easy to assume that boring is bad. Now, I will admit to you, when I was 16, I didn't like boring either. But can I tell you what we know now that we did not know when I was 16? Neuroscientists tell us today our brains actually need boredom. Did you know that? They say it's in times when your calendar has some space and some margin in it that you actually develop, get this, creativity and empathy. Two huge kingdom values. Think about the opposite. If I'm living in a world of noise and clutter coming at me all the time, I'm not thinking about anybody else. I'm trying to survive the week. And I'm afraid we have so many kids just trying to survive the week. And I'm saying life was not supposed to be this way. Can I get an amen from the choir? Okay, so how do we do this? The letter N. Certainly not everybody in America, but the letter N stands for a word that we see very often in middle class America and certainly in affluent America. Our world today is full of nurture. What I mean by that is that statement I just gave you. We raised these kids in a world of nurture, which meant safety and self-esteem were extremely high priorities. Now, I agree, safety and self-esteem should be high. I'm a dad, I want my kids to have high self-esteem and safety. But we did artificial things to build that in them. For instance, giving a trophy to everybody on the team just for showing up and putting a uniform on. I don't think their boss is going to clap for them every Friday because they showed up at work on time. True? So we meant well. I know a 9-year-old little boy that handed the trophy back to his dad, said, this doesn't mean anything. The kids are not stupid. I just wonder if we are. I'm just asking. And then the safety thing. Have you noticed how safety obsessed we are in our world today? Now, I'm for safety, but we are like preoccupied. Knee pads, elbow pads. We put helmets on them at dinner time almost. It's crazy. I'm kidding, but you follow what I'm saying? Now, while all of those goals are very well intended, Mama, they're all good goals. You don't have to email me. I think they're good goals. But listen to me. What's the message we're sending? I'll tell you what it is. Risk is bad. Folks, our nation was built on risk, wasn't it? In 1776, America was an experiment. We said, let's take a risk and do this thing called democracy. And it worked because we had no guarantees, but we did it anyway. We had no insurance and we did it anyway. Now, all I'm saying to you is the Gen Z is very entrepreneurial. They want to start something. The 70% of them want to start something, but we're also raising them in a fearful mindset where they're so afraid of making a mistake. FOMO. And I'm saying, how can we change that? I'm asking. Okay, one more. We've got S-C-E-N. The last letter E is the word I hear in all 50 states. I don't think it's everybody. It's not all of us in this room, but I bet you'll recognize the word immediately. Our world today is full of entitlement. I feel like I should get this because I'm here. It's part of my scholarship. Why don't you just give that to me? And if I grew up where that's everywhere, I feel entitled to this, it's far too easy to conclude that labor is bad. I shouldn't have to work for this. Now, again, I probably sound like your grandpa right now, don't I? These lazy kids today. Let me just say this. I want you to know the kids are the products of our making. Amen or ouch, either one, it's true, okay? So listen to me. How do we take this and say, let's build muscles emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually that might have atrophied because they didn't get used? Muscles are built with strength and conditioning. True? How do we build spiritual exercises into their life? Intellectual exercises, emotional exercises. Now, one last thing before I get to some ideas, and I know I'm running out of time. Look at this list right here, the one that reads slow, hard, boring, risk, and labor. It dawned on me as I first wrote this out, aren't these the very elements that grow me into a good adult? When things are a little bit hard and I got to work for it, it doesn't come right away, but I work for it and I feel so proud that I've done this. We did this. All I'm simply saying is this, our marvelous world of 21st century technology, which we all love, has unwittingly stripped away the things that would naturally build life skills in me. So we have to be more intentional. That's the message I want you to take away from today. I got to be way more intentional today than I was years ago when things were slower and harder and whatever. So how do we do this? Moms, dads, uncles, aunts, coaches, teachers, employers. How do we do this? How do we say, I got a job that I do every day, but number 7 on that job description or whatever is, I got to find somebody from the emerging generation and make sure they've got the tools. Just like Moses found Joshua and said, before I pass away, I'm gonna make somebody's ready to do the leading. It's the Joshua problem and we need to solve it. Are you willing to step into the game? It could be informal. It may just be hallway conversations you have with a 21-year-old or a 15-year-old or whatever, but you're loving on them, you're listening, you're talking. Maybe the mentoring goes both ways. You're learning from them on that latest app, and they're learning from you on how life works. But I'm telling you, this is what we got to do better in the church. We far too often categorize everybody into an age group. We need to get together once in a while, don't you think? 4 of you, good enough for me, all right. Okay, so I've only got a few minutes, so I'm gonna do this fast. Fasten your seatbelts. You're gonna have to listen fast now, okay? I wanna answer this question. How do we mentor them? Well, this deserves lots and lots of time, but I want to give it a few minutes, and I want to give you 4 words that I think might be very informative and instructive as you think about interacting with the emerging generation. If you and I went to Starbucks, we both got a latte, and you said, Tim, I've only got 5 minutes. What do I need to know? I would say these next 4 words. The words spell epic. You should know I'm the king of acronyms, okay? So EPIC aptly describe, I believe, who they are and how they learn. Can I say that again? The word epic, EPIC, represent 4 words that I think symbolize who they are and how they learn. Let's look at these one by one very, very quickly. The letter E reminds me, this is an experiential generation. Think about the world they grew up in. All around them in culture was experiences. In fact, think about it. When they're kiddos, little kids, you couldn't go to a fast food restaurant without a playland experience. Am I right? It wasn't just a cheeseburger, it's balls and swings and slides and everything else. I mean, you didn't get bored at the fast food restaurant. And then, have you been to a children's museum lately? Oh my gosh, it's not just gaze at the painting, it's lick it, sniff it, touch it, taste. It's a germ fest in there. You want to wipe your hands off when you walk out of the building. Have you all seen this before? It's like, yeah. So, listen to me. Everything about this has been experienced, and then we have a talk we give them at dinner time or a talk we give them in the classroom. I don't think so. How could we create experiences from which we dialogue and converse? How can we create environments that are different from which we have a great conversation? Quick illustration. Because of what I do, I'm just aware of all this. So as I raise my kids, I try to be an epic dad. I was talking with my son about responsibility, and it wasn't going over really well. Has anybody ever had that experience, okay? So he was 12 years old. I said, Jonathan, let's do a trip. So we flew from Atlanta, Georgia, up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. He picked Minneapolis, okay? So we went to Camp Snoopy, Mall of America. We had a lot of fun, pillow fights. We did stuff we never told Mama about, okay? But on the 4th day, the final day of our time together up there, I said, we're gonna have some really good conversation. He goes, Dad, I don't wanna do that. Jonathan, just relax. What we did was I grabbed our rental car and we drove up to one of the 10,000 lakes that's up there near Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I found a parking lot right next to one of the lakes. And I pulled in and I said, Jonathan, he's in the passenger seat. I said, Jonathan, I want to do something a little different now. He said, tell me something I don't know. I said, Jonathan, be quiet. I said, I want to trade places with you. What do you mean? I said, I'm going to get out of this car, sit in the passenger seat. You're going to sit in the driver's seat, and I want you to drive this car. First thing he said was, Dad, that is illegal. That is illegal. That's illegal. It's illegal. He's like his mama, he's a rule keeper. I said, Jonathan, we're not gonna go out in the main roads, we're gonna stay right here in the parking lot, but I want you to drive this car. Next thing he said, Dad, Mom will not like this. Mom will not like this. That's what he said. I said, Jonathan, your mother does not need to know. Now, do what I'm asking you to do. It took me 10 minutes, but I finally got him to sit behind the wheel. He trusts me enough to sit behind the wheel. So this 12-year-old kid, steering wheel, I explained the accelerator, the brake, the gear shift, everything, ignition. I explained all the stuff, and I said, Jonathan, you drive it now. And with fear and trepidation, he turned the car on, and he backs it up, and he starts driving. Well, he's a boy, so he's loving this. In fact, pretty soon, he's doing everything he's seen me do. You know what I mean? He's acting like me. So he's parallel parking, diagonal parking, speeding up, screeching to a halt. After about 15, 20 minutes, I said, okay, stop the car, stop the car. We traded places again, and then I said, Jonathan, I want to talk to you. I said, this is going to feel cheesy, so just go with it. How did you first feel when you got behind the wheel and started driving this car? Well, I was so glad he got honest. He goes, Dad, I panicked. I didn't think I could do it. I'm only 12. I said, exactly. I said, Jonathan, that's exactly the feeling you're gonna have becoming a man. You're gonna feel like, I don't know how to do this. I wanna play video games still. I don't know how to do this. I said, Jonathan, I felt this way. By the way, ladies, I'm giving you a true confession about us guys. We don't know what we're doing. But anyway, I I said, what did you just show to me? He thought for a minute and he said, I guess I could do it. I showed you I could do it. I said, exactly. I said, before you thought you could, it was in you to do this. God put it in you to do this. But you got to believe by doing. You can't talk about it. You can't read a book. You can't watch a video. You got to do it. That's how you do it. That's how you learn to drive a car. That's how you learn to become a man. You've got to do the man things. And then I said, so I got one more question. What else did you know about this scenario here? He had to think for a minute, but then he got it. He smiled and goes, well, I knew you were right there. So if anything happened, you're going to. And I said, Jonathan, your Heavenly Father is right there every single day. And I know that's cheesy, but you just got to know as you're trying stuff, He's right there. My point was, I had an incredible conversation with a 6th grader because we made it experiential. That conversation wouldn't have happened with, now here's some things you need to know about responsibility. That's never gone over well with me. How about you? Well, right after that, by the way, I noticed about 5 minutes away, there was a graveyard. So I drove over to the graveyard and we got out and I said, Jonathan, this is going to feel really weird, but I want us to walk through this graveyard and for about 10 or 15 minutes, read the tombstones. It was one of those old-fashioned 19th century gravestones, where you can read the epitaphs and they have statements. And he goes, Dad, this is sick. I said, I know it is, but just read the tombstones. So now he's trusting. So we read many tombstones in 10 or 15 minutes. And then we sat down on the curb, and folks, I had the greatest conversation I've ever had with a 12-year-old about what would be on his and mine. Not what we say about ourselves, that's easy, on Twitter. What will others say by the way they watch us live our lives? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what will they say? Because that's what a tombstone is. We notice some people lived a long time, some people not. Some people had nice things written about them, some not. What will they write about us? Folks, all I'm saying was create experiences, create experiences, create experiences. Okay, the letter P. The letter P reminds me they are a generation that's participatory. Now let me explain, this is a little different than experiential. By participatory, I want you to think about this generation of kids. We have been asking them to have a say from day one. We just thought it would be great to give them options. You want bologna grilled cheese. You want to go to Disney World. You want to go to the mountains. You want As a young adults, they can hardly watch a reality TV show without voting on who stays on the show next week. Have we not created a participatory culture here? Okay, so what I'm saying is, how could we lead them better where as a parent, teacher, coach, whatever, we're letting them put their fingerprints on the program. We're letting them have a little bit of a say. We're still the leader, but we're letting them have a say how this experience will be different this year because they participate in the outcomes of where it's going. The very first NCAA Division I football team we ever started working with, it was 11 years ago. It was the Texas Longhorn college football team. Mac Brown was still the head coach. You remember those guys? Well, he was having trouble one September with his guys. They were being sent to jail. That was not a good thing. And so we went in and we talked about epic coaching. And I called the next week and discovered the coaching staff at Texas was starting to let the players run the practice. How are we going to get ready for Texas Tech this next weekend? What are we going to do? And I called them and I said, are they making good decisions? And Coach Kenny Rucker, the running back coach, said, well, not all the time. But he said, you never see a player so own how they're getting in the end zone as when they chose how to get there. You follow what I'm saying? Parents, don't you want your kids to own their life and their adulthood? Teachers, don't you want them to own their education, not just rent it from you? How do we do this? Here's the point I want you to get. Students support what they help create. Students support what they help create. So as our kids were growing up, they were age 12 and 8, Bethany's the older, we were talking to them about people skills and emotional intelligence, and we could just tell they weren't getting it. They would say all the right things. Jesus is the answer, yes, okay. But we could tell they were not learning it, so here's what we did. We let them own it. We hosted a party. The Elmore family hosted a party for our adult friends, but my wife and I didn't host it. Our kids hosted it at age 8 and 12. At first they went, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. But do you know what they learned to do? Answer the door. Hi, Mr. Johnson, come on in. Have you met Mrs. Smith? Can I take your coat? Would you like some iced tea? And then we debriefed after that party about people skills, what they had exhibited, what they learned. And it was so funny to hear my daughter Bethany go, Mr. Johnson's EQ is so low. It's amazingly low, Bethany, look in the mirror, But all I'm saying is great conversations happened when they were participating in where it went. The letter I in EPIC reminds us, they're image rich. And by that, I simply mean they've grown up in a world of images and visuals and videos and icons. I love what futurist Dr. Leonard Sweet once said. I think he's right. Images are the language of the 21st century, not words. So around our dinner table, once a week, we'd go through a habitude. If you're not familiar with habitudes, habitudes are images that form leadership habits and attitudes. Well, I used a picture that represented a timeless, universal biblical principle that works, but it was anchored not with a bunch of words or paragraphs, but with a picture. We talked about focus one night by talking about rivers and floods. Floods are water going in every direction. Rivers are flowing in one direction. Are you a river or flood? By the way, I bet you if I took a vote right now, many of you would say, I'm flooding, not flowing right now. 5 miles wide and 1 inch deep. Anybody feel that way? Our lives need to be rivers. Find your God-given river and flow. Well, it was a great conversation because it was image rich. How are you leveraging images to anchor the big idea you're trying to get across? I'm asking. The letter C, the last one, they're connected. They're connected both socially as well as technologically. And sometimes social gets connected through technology. I'm kind of thinking that these 4 teenagers are probably texting each other right now up on the screen, okay? So, teenagers, am I right about that? Okay, so here's what I'm saying. Teachers, what if you took that class of 25 and you stopped halfway through the class period and you put them in groups of 3, not 25, but 3, and you give them a well-crafted question, one that could not be answered with yes or no or 1865 or whatever, and you let them connect, and soon they're processing and they're owning the topic. You have student engagement. Don't we want student engagement? But I'm telling you, we got to stop doing all the telling and do some of the asking. I think that's what works. So I need to stop. I want to close this way. I don't know if this has been this morning overwhelming or exciting or depressing. I don't know. But I want to leave you with hope. I believe a body like the one I see in front of you. All of you don't know each other, but you know a few. I'm saying this body could make an incredible, life-changing difference to a group of young adults. Middle school, high school, college, young professionals. Here's why I say that. When both of our kids, Bethany and Jonathan, at the house, were younger, when they were 13 years old, in fact, my wife and I probably made the smartest parenting decision we ever made. We decided to create a rite of passage experience for them. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this, but our rite of passage was a little different. I sat down with my daughter Bethany when she was 13, she's our firstborn, and I said about 9 o'clock at night at the supper table, the dinner table, I said, Bethany, I want to create a rite of passage experience with you tonight. Something that's going to help you transition from girlhood to womanhood, from childhood to adulthood. She goes, okay, cool. And so we started talking about what that might look like. And here's what we came up with. Together, we came up with this. We chose 6 women that would be one-day mentors for her that next year. Women that she thought were really cool as an 8th grade girl, and women that Pam and I agreed were wonderful, godly female role models. They're in midlife, but they're well-adjusted, sharp. They've got their life together. They're not perfect, but we so respected the way they were doing life. We just wanted her to not just have mom and dad, but we wanted them to have other members of the body of Christ just spend a day with her. Well, I called all these 6 ladies the next day, and I said, this is going to sound crazy, but would you be a one-day mentor for Bethany? And then I described what I was asking for. And every one of them said yes. I said, just let her shadow you. If you go to work, take her to work. Put her to work if you want to. If you stay at home, keep her at home. We just want her to be with you as you do whatever you do. We want her to watch how you do it. And I said, the only request I make of you now is this, that during the course of that day, would you share one life message with our daughter Bethany? A message you wish you would have heard when you were 13, but nobody ever shared it with you. Well, that just ignited these ladies. They said, absolutely. Every one of them said yes. I won't share all the stories. Let me share a couple. Sarah was the very first one. Blew me away. She was epic, by the way. She never heard me teach this, and she was epic. She took our little girl first thing in the morning down to the hospital. Sarah's an RN. She's a registered nurse, works in the maternity ward at the local hospital. She took our little girl into the maternity ward. Our 8th grade daughter was helping women give birth to babies between 9 and 3 that day. Kind of scares me just thinking about it right now. And they treated her like an intern. Scalpel, scissors, you know. And she, oh my gosh, it was crazy. And by the way, she saw it all. She saw a C-section, a natural birth, saw everything. At 3 o'clock, Sarah took her out of the maternity ward into another room in the hospital where Sarah taught a class for unwed mothers. Bethany sat amidst a bunch of other teenagers that were pregnant, probably didn't want to be. At the end of the day, after those sobering experiences, Bethany and Sarah had dinner together. And do you know what Sarah's life message was for our daughter? It was on sexual purity, abstinence, waiting on the man that God brings you before you get sexually active with everybody. Well, don't you know that message got through loud and clear that particular day, much better than my lecture on the subject, and I've got a great lecture on that subject, okay? I really do. Holly was next. We live in Atlanta, Georgia. Holly took Bethany downtown Atlanta. She worked on the projects all day long with people who were underserved or homeless. She gave away blankets and food and prayed with kids and painted their cheeks with paint. I mean, it was incredible. And of course, she wanted to come back and talk till midnight every night that she had this day that was so experiential, so participatory, so image rich, and helped her connect. I watched her grow up that year. Betsy is a flight attendant with Delta Airlines. She got a buddy pass, flew Bethany up to New York City for the day. They spent the day in New York talking about living a life of adventure and not just predictable, no risk, doing what you've done always before, but doing something different and make your life an exciting life of obedience to God. I'm telling you, my little girl went from a thermometer to a thermostat with her friends, if you know what I'm talking about. I share that with you because at the end of the year, we had all the ladies over for kind of an end of year, kind of a climax time. Bethany served them dinner, which was a big deal. And then all 6 of these ladies went into the family room where they sat in the sofa and chairs around the family room. And our little blonde-haired 8th grader sat down in a chair, and she had in her hands 6 letters. She had written a personal letter to every one of these ladies that she read to them. This was difficult too. She was kind of a chill girl. Her favorite word was whatever. So this was a big deal for her to take initiative like this. But she did. I had coaxed her, but she did it. And one by one, dear Miss Sarah, this is what I learned from you. This is how my life changed. Thank you. Dear Miss Sandra, this is what I learned from you. This is how my life changed. Thank you. Dear Miss Holly, dear Miss Betsy, this is what I learned from you. Well, you can imagine there was not a dry eye in the room as they're whispering things back to her, giving their cell phone number to her. But at the end of that experience, I tried to read from the book of Genesis on rites of passage experiences, how Jewish fathers would speak words of blessing at about this time of their kids' lives over their children. I couldn't look at me right now. I couldn't do it, but I didn't have to. Every one of these ladies was intuitive and knew exactly what was going on. And they got up from their sofa and chairs and they knelt down on the carpet and looking up at our little girl, just spoke words of blessing, words of affirmation. Bethany, I believe in you. I've seen you. Bethany, you're going to be a great leader. You are. Bethany, you're going to be a great wife if you choose to be. Bethany, you'll be a splendid mother if you choose to be. I can see it. I watched the voices of others shape my little girl. Did I succumb to my fatherhood response? No, I didn't. I'm just saying we welcomed others into the journey. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? What if that happened here? What if it happened? And it may not need to be formal. Maybe it's informal. Maybe you have a spontaneous hallway conversation you did not plan on having, but it was exactly what they needed to hear in that moment because it was such a right moment. I'm asking, could you be a part of this? I think you can. In fact, I think we must. I think this is part of the job description of being a Christ follower. Like it or not, it's our job. There's a Joshua or a Jessica waiting somewhere. One last piece, and I'll stop. That last night we had together was phenomenal. But Jonathan, Bethany's little brother, watched everything. You know how little brothers are? They watch everything. So he's off to the side, kind of watching the blessing go on and the letters and everything like that. So we say goodbye to the ladies. I walk Jonathan upstairs, tuck him into bed, and right before we pray together, Jonathan goes, Dad, I've already picked the 6 guys I want to mentor me. And 4 years later, we did it with him. So folks, I'm gonna pray for you. I know I tried to go through a truckload of content, probably way too much, you're probably overwhelmed. Andrew and I are going to be back at a book table. We have a package. If you want to go deeper and you feel like you couldn't keep up with everything, we got a book package. It's a Pathway book package that's 5 books for $40. I think you're saving about $40 on this package. But if you'd like to see us and get it, that would be great. I blog 3 times a week. I'd love to stay in touch. I write about data on leading the next generation well. We want to be a resource if you want that. You don't have to, but if you'd like that, we'd love to be that for you. Can I pray for you? Let's do it. Heavenly Father, I'm asking now that you'd help us collect and maintain and retain what we've just talked about. Holy Spirit, do the work in us that would help us remember what we need to remember. And then God, I'm asking for divine appointments with different generations. Help the young connect with the old. Help the old connect with the young. I believe this is what is supposed to happen. And I think you do too. So commission us now, God. Finish the work you've begun even today in our hearts. In Jesus' name I pray. And God's people said, God bless you guys. Thank you.